Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, we painted this side. We painted the Snowy Owl, where we talked about whites, how to paint warms and cool whites. And previous to that, we talked about color harmonies with some flowers and stuff. And before I jump into my next, which is going to be a seascape and stuff, I wanted to reinforce those two elements really together in another painting. Paint some Floribunda roses. These guys right here, this is a reference photo. I'm just going to use it as an idea. I'm not going to copy it. But the Floribunda roses, I like to put them all together, and we'll talk about tonal harmonies. We'll talk about warms and cools, and it'll be a great thing to do. So what I have here is a board that is 14 inches this way, 18 inches this way. This is what's called a double tempered MDF. It is very smooth surface, and then I gave it a coat of, I took some burnt sienna, pine green, and white, and raised it up. It's about probably somewhere between an 8 and a 7 and an 8, and that's what it is. It's just a little lighter than a 7, just a little darker than an 8. It's a 7.45, somewhere right around there, value-wise. So add enough white to get it right up around there. It's a good board, good color, good neutral kind of color here to start out with. And then I'm going to use some of my fusion brushes, and mostly I'm going to be painting today with my number 10. This is a number 10 Fusion Filbert. I love this one for anytime I'm going to do these roses that I have a real defined petal edge, or I'm going to do a lot of drawing with them. I head to the Filbert more than the flat, and you'll see that in some of the 30 Days of Roses videos. I'm using the Heritage Multimedia colors, and then this is my standard YouTube palette. We call it Dave's Favorites, and it all the list of all the colors and everything, links to everything are down in the video below. Okay, so take a look at that. Okay, all right. So let's go in and let's have some fun. So we want to talk about harmonies. We want to put some roses in here together to where we're going to have some depth. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is look at this. I'm going to look at some of these backgrounds. I love to play burnt sienna and pine green. Not always all the time, but I love to paint those together because it's just, and you know, I'm a selling, let's put it this way, I'm a selling artist, and every time I do this, boy, people just love it. I take some burnt sienna, pine green. It's a nice color. It's a nice warm color that I have here, and I can play off it into the painting really well. And I love this, especially when I let some of this happen. This comes through. You know, we were talking about Richard Smith and his use of the grand manner, and see all of this, that gives it that beautiful look. So you don't mix it up real well. Take some extender, push it in here, it'll get a little thin, but don't mix it up real well, so you'll get some of these color marks that come off that is just wonderful. Now, I can soften some of these if I want. Pull some of this out, soften some of these up. I like to put it in strong verticals, strong horizontals, which means that, you know, my flowers here are going to be kind of on a diagonal, somewhere around in there. But so I like to have a strong horizontal and a strong vertical. Let's just take a little bit more of this and push some of this. I just like to play the backgrounds. Now, you've seen me before. I'll add whites to this. I mean, I'll skip, put in a few different marks to just pull your eye out into some other areas and stuff. I like to sometimes take a palette knife and come in with a little extra color, you know, darker color here, something like this, and you know, work some strikes of some color, put in some other variations like that. That is not just a brush mark, it's a little tapping of a color here. You know, it just creates a difference to the background, especially where I'm going to have some of these flowers and stuff. I liked some of this around. This is, and all of this is good harmonious color. Now, you can do this with blues. I like the blue and the Naphthol Red Light. You see me do that with painting rocks and stuff like that. Usually it's somewhere close to complements because I can get that grain of color. So yellows and violets, those work really pretty together. Like I say, the blues and any oranges and stuff like that. I usually play into the background something that's very close to complements, and this pine green, you know, the burnt sienna is kind of a red-orange, and the pine green's kind of a yellow green. They're, you know, they're not perfect complements by any manner of means, but they are close enough that you get these beautiful grain of these colors, which is what I like. And I'll play this, and with that extender, I've got lots of time to kind of play these colors around a bit and look for a few more variations into my background. It's fun that sometimes I get a background that I really, really like, and then I don't want to put flowers up on top of it because I cover it all up. But you can have a bit of fun. You know, here I might take a, you know, warmer burnt sienna and just pull down, just pull down. And then, you know, I might have, so I set that up. Then sometimes you see me put in like light blues and stuff like that down through here. The flowers, okay, let's look to the flowers for a moment. You know, we're going to do some warms and cools. So let's come over here. Let's take a warm red, a cool quinacridone, and let's lighten this up a bit. Create kind of a neutral. Then take some of this. Now what this is going to be color, these colors here will be our color of harmony. So this is a nice harmonious color of a color that, as a matter of fact, look at that color inside of those roses and stuff. That's what you're going to see there. And I may come out right out through here like this and add some of this color. I can do it now and I can do it later, but I can add a little bit of that color coming out as spots of color that, you know, suggest the roses here, taking them further out into the background. So, I mean, it's just beautiful. So I look for it. Sometimes, you know, I'd say, okay, I got this cool pink and stuff here. Maybe I'll take a complement with it right into the pink and green or something like that, you know. But you have all kinds of variations, and that's your job as the artist. Now, I've got a lot of paint in here, and I want to put 2 roses in here, one right in this area. So I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to back out some of my color here, right where I might want to put that one rose. Maybe the other one I'll move. I'll put one right up here, that other one that's climbing up there by the top. And the floribunda roses and stuff, I like them very formal, which means they generally touch each other. So I might move this one up to this angle. This is a compositional shape that I use all the time that this sells so very well for me. Sometimes I'll put other stuff, but I might put in some stems and stuff like that coming in on this side, right over here. Push back. See, I like that kind of combination. So that extender keeps it nice and wet. If you want even more working time, you can put that open medium on. Open medium will make it even more wet, longer, thicker. So you'll have to definitely wipe some out, but it's a lot of fun to play with, to try some of that. Now, so we're thinking harmony. So now you can see all these colors that I have in here are very, very harmonious. Now let's think of sparks of color. So we have this, and that's just wonderful. Do you want to put any more sparks of color in there? Well, you know, some of you that where I talked to you said you want to learn more about Richard Smith and some of the grand manner techniques. Yeah, he would put in other sparks of color, a lot of times towards the end. But what do you see inside those roses? Some of the yellow. One of the yellow I want to use is the Diarylide. So I took a little bit of yellow oxide, little Diarylide, our color of harmony, just a bit of that here. And let's put a little open medium into this. Let's use our smaller filbert here, and let's just push in some sparks of, there comes a yellow. You see a little bit of that yellow through here. And what does this do? This just carries this color that you're going to be seeing here in the roses out into the design. Let's just say that's going to come right in through here and drop down. You might pick up a bit of that yellow coming here outside right down in here. So you pick up some of those yellows. So what I do generally do, guys, is you have your roses, you know, look at your roses. You got these pinks, you got this real deep red. That would be we put the pinks in, some yellow. These are the sparks, the accents. Now I can add more, and I probably will. But we can also look to that real cool. Let's grab a little bit of just a spark of our cooler color and push some of that in. See, that's just And boy, and it looks great playing up against pretty close to those yellows and stuff like that that we have. Just put in a little spark of that color, you know, coming through, just something, you know, and you can soften that out. I love to do a paper towel, push and pull. You could use your palette knife. You can create all kinds of nice little interests and stuff like that with it. Maybe we'll create a little spark of that. Sometimes I'll think, oh, to the lower side, which this will be the lower shadow side of this rose. So I'll push some of that right down in here. See? And I'm not going to copy those. I have them out there mostly for a security blanket. I paint roses all the time. It's just where I'll pull some ideas from. I'm not going to copy them. So now you see you got this background, this really kind of beautiful background. I could soften this if I want to. You know, I could take some of these colors here, add some white to this, and create, you know, maybe a little green. It looks a little red, so maybe a little green, and create some softer tones coming out through here that will, you know, eliminate some of that background and give me a softer look to the painting. That's up to you. You know, I like some of that color going through here, you know. But if you're talking about some of the Grand Manner technique, you might take that all the way through. Or sometimes you would just put some white, some light color over the top of this and start pushing the whole thing back. That's your choice. And there's just 1,000 different, I like to tell all my students, there's 1,000 different pathways that you can use to create some of these looks. And they're all equally wonderful. Okay. All right. So now let's get back to some of that pink. First, we'll take both of our cooler colors here, some of the reds. Let's get back to a kind of a pinkish color, reddish pink that we can use here inside the bowl of the rose. And see, all I'm doing, stepping back on my brush, and the number 10 has a nice long hair to it here. See, so that keeps the tip of it very soft, which is what I want. I want the tip to kind of do its own thing. I'm just kind of directing it here in a semicircle. And I'll lift the pressure and just kind of, I call it the sketching of it, sketch in some of that shape. Let's put in some right down by the bowl, where the bowl of that rose would be coming in there, okay? Maybe a softer, back here, let's get the harmony of it. Now, we talked about in the harmony video, the one we did just a little bit ago, we take some of our background that we used, we drop that in, and so our inside here is not quite as bright. So it's a little bit more toned. Here it is more bright. And I can control that. Now I probably should, a little harmony, a little green. See what the green does to this lower side here. That a bit of harmony color softens that right out. And maybe a bit more of my darker and my brighter. So I'm looking more at brightness of it. We'll drop a little deeper color right into this one and right into this center part of this one here. And that just brings them right up even more. And this one stays soft. Don't go, if I go put that into there, I'll flatten out that rose. Well, look at it here. Look at how soft that rose is there compared to what's going on in the colors here. And there's not that much difference between them. And you'll see this outside one here. So, you know, and actually in this rose, you see the darkest colors. There's a little bit right in there. The darkest colors right in there. You know, so you can see that. Let's take, and we'll grab some white into this. And see, I'm not even gonna tone this down very much. I want some really punched up color here. And I'll just create a few petals kind of going around here like that into this rose. And see, I just tap in so I keep that kind of light edge. This is why I like the filbert. I use this corner of the filbert to kind of draw around here. And that gives me kind of an idea there. Let's soften that out. A little bit of our tan color, a little bit of this into there. Soften it out a bit. And let's just pull in a few slightly softer movements around here, around this area here. So we see where those centers are going to go. This is a little bit lighter, which is what I like, which I'm going to leave that. Now, out to the outside there, before I get too far, let's take some of our Diarylide Yellow. I love this yellow. I love the warmth and the feeling of this yellow coming inside the roses here, especially when you're painting any of these beautiful colors like Smid and some of the other representational artists use in their paintings. I love that kind of stuff. Whoops, that's going to be a bit bright. So let's just add a little bit of our softening color. See how much softer that is there? See? Like that. And let's grab this white with this, and let's just start to set up here some of the fronts, like the front of that rose there. We'll pull that right across, opening that one up there, and that's a good open. Now, we could put in a larger petal, like right over here, that pulls down a bit, and see, I can turn this brush onto its side here. Turn this brush onto its side and kind of draw that petal in there a bit if I want, so I can get all different kinds of shapes there. I'm going to add just a touch more white to this and just kind of pull this in. Boom. I'll leave some of that other edge there. Let's put in, I like these kind of crossing ones that are right here like this. I'll push off with my finger and soften some of those out. Maybe a little bit more in here. Just an idea. Again, I'm not going to copy that. You can copy closer if you want. I'm just using it for some ideas. Now, if I get that too close to the shadow, what you do is you just tap your brush into a little shadow. Poke it, just the tip of that up back there, and lift off. And you'll bring that shadow back up right where you want on that particular rose, see? Now, before I go any further with that, I'm going to take a little open medium. I use this because it's thicker. I like the thicker medium of it. And I want some of this pink, and I want some of this light and this yellow, and I want this all modeled together with some open medium here. The open medium is going to keep it thicker. See how it's thicker? Extender, which is I have right here, which is this, will make it thin down. The open medium, which is the Derivan open medium, which is that right there, that keeps it nice and thick, which makes it easier to draw. So we'll push some of that in. Let's come right back out here, and we'll just draw a nice little petal edge here. That will be a nice variation. And I'll just push that in. Maybe pick up some of the reds and stuff, or greens that are in there. If it doesn't slide too much, I always add just a bit of extender, which causes the color to slide further. See how much further it slides? And I like that feeling too into when I'm drawing. So the thicker color I use out here to draw an edge, you know, and don't make just a perfectly round edge. And then sometimes I'll thin it up just a bit and pull in, and with that extender, and that just works really light. So I like the combinations between the two as I'm painting. So we'll come over here. Let's grab a little bit more light color and pull that in. And then I'll harmonize it. Remember? Harmonize it. Remember that video? We harmonize it as we go back, and see how this is going to send this one right to the back. And maybe I'll do a real soft little drawing of the petals back out here on this rose. Maybe just some soft ideas pulling out. Sometimes I pull out when I paint them. Sometimes you pull in, pull out there. Okay, maybe come back and do a little bit of soft edge. See how it's just a tiny bit in my brush? I can use that to make little petal edges. Right back out here like that. So I can draw. I use the tiniest little bit on the corner, and I can use that. I roll over onto that edge, and I can draw around that to set up some of the shape of the flowers that I want to have here. So maybe I want to come out. Let's point this one up a bit here. A little different shape here. And see, so I can, this is why whenever I feel I'm going to draw a lot on the roses and do these light little tips and stuff, that's when I go to my filbert brush. And the filbert just does that so well there, like that. So I can really set up that shape of that big Floribunda rose there. And I'm going to pick up some more light. We'll get a little bit of this pink light, keep this nice and warm here and light. And let's pull another little light petal right here. Okay. And if it's too wet, and it's pretty wet right in there right now, what I'll do is I'll let it dry up, and I just might do that. I'll just put on another one right here. Pull this one in, let that smaller one there. Maybe, and then I'll incorporate that. This is what I call it, incorporate. I'll take a little yellow, a little red in my brush, and I'll just lift off into the shape of that petal here. Sometimes push it around. And so this is really, really wet right in here right now. So, and it gets hard to do that sometimes to work in there. So I let it tack up for just a minute. And while that's tacking up, what I'll do is I'll come out here to the other rose. And let's push out and make a different one there. And then I'll use the thinner color as I pull it in. So the thicker color to draw, the thinner color to move it and draw it in, okay? And let's take a little bit of pink right in here, because I love to keep some of that pink into these flowers as well, here. And so get a little more of that pink right in here. That pink color, and see that pink is nice and soft because it carries that background of that green in there. So we have that. And maybe just model some of this. Sometimes I'll just model those colors around here. I'll take some of these reds and yellows and violet and the red violet here and just model some of those colors around. Get some of those pinks in here, that movement. That's what I'm looking for, is that movement in there. Maybe a couple of strikes of a stronger yellow in there like that. There we go. And a couple strikes of that right out here would be pretty. See, so you get all of that modeling around. Now, a lot of this, guys, a lot of this has to do with the consistency, and I'm feeling it on the surface. If your color is, and this is the thing, if your color is too loose, it moves too easy. And it will blend really easy. Every time you touch it, it just kind of disappears. So you want to use a certain thickness. You can see in here, the color has a certain thickness to it. And it gets a certain stiffness to it when I get that thickness to it. And that's what I'm looking for as I soften some of that out. And then when I get a lot of this color, sometimes I have to let the acrylic just start to tack up a bit and go work on something else if I want to draw. Otherwise, if your color's too loose, it won't draw. So now I'll just model into some of this. I'll pick up that little edge right there that I can come in here, look at that one there and say, yeah, okay, maybe I'll push another one. Another little petal right in here. Maybe a little more light color into that. Let's push a little more light color right into there and pull that petal in. Okay. And maybe following that one over there, maybe a little more light right here, pulling that one in. And I don't want to get too much light out there, so I'll just push it, leave it on that edge there. Just a bit here. Just a bit of that light. And you can put the folded edges in and stuff like that. We might do that a bit. And I'll look to also come right up here by the top. Let's put in that big idea of a folded one coming down like that. I like that one. Now, if I pull white all the way down there, I'm going to destroy my depth that I'm developing into the roses. So I'm going to pinch wipe my brush. I'm going to pick up some of my yellow and some of my pinks that I want to preserve, and I'm going to pull that through right into that area there. And then I'll come back with a slightly lighter color and just pull right along it, sometimes reaching up by the tip where that light color is. But I don't want to destroy all that white down, so I use a slightly darker color. And sometimes you'll see me, because I vary this, I don't always do it exactly the same each time. But I'll reinforce. You'll see me in that 30 Days of Roses. Restate your bowl. Always restating the bowl, because the bowl is the part of the rose that gives it its roundness, and it's the most important part of the rose is that bowl. So many times you'll see me and hear me say, restate your bowl. Always find your bowl of your rose. That's the lower part here, the transitional part of the rose. So you always want to be able to find that bowl somewhere in there where it's going to transition. This one I want a bit more, so I'm going to give it even a bit more dark right in there, and maybe even play a bit more of that real bright Diarylide and violet playing together in there. And I'll work back and forth. Many times when I feel the colors can handle it, you know, you feel the surface with your brush. You want to be able to draw, but yet you also want to be able to soften too. So I'm feeling the surface of my rose here as I'm painting it to make sure it's right where I can work with it. Let's just put an angled petal in here like that, and just a little point of it right out there like that. That might be kind of pretty. You can do this folded over petal here just by taking this color here and folding it this way, right here like this, and then letting it go back into that inside here. So your shadow goes to the inside there, like that. So you can fold that petal over. And what helps it even more as a fold over is, and what the difference is, you pull back just a bit. So pull back into the flower just a bit, and that folds that petal over even more. So, you know, how much you do it or where you do it and stuff, that's up to you. Let's pull this one right in here, get a little bit more light, a little bit more pure white here. And then I'll just wipe that brush real quick so I don't have as much, and I'm just going to reach in and pull in like this so I get that motion of it. Now, if you want it to roll, you pull in just real short like this, short, and then you go back, okay, and pick up some of that shadow and make sure you express that shadow, and that causes it to roll into the rose there, just like that. So it's all, you know, it's all in color placement and your stroke, but when you're going to roll an edge, it's shorter strokes that go into it, picking it up, and that edge just rolls in. Okay. Now, what I don't like is those two lining up there really, really well. So I'm going to move this one over. It's real easy. I'm just going to take this. I'm going to use the color I already have there, and I'm just going to move this one over and set another, maybe even the bowl of the rose here coming out. Right like that, that bowl. So we'll see that bowl coming out here. There's just 1,000 ways, and the thing is, go look, you know, go find yourself some really pretty roses and follow them, follow their structure. I don't like to copy too much, because then that makes my roses and stuff start to look really stiff, and I don't like that. I'll just get impressions. I'll get impressions of them. Let's just fold that in there so that one comes in. Let's fold a little more light color right in here, right on that bowl here. Let's bring this one here back out. Let's drop it down right into there, and then fold that back a bit here. And so you can see right there in that mark, you can see why I like the filbert, is because it can I can use the point of it to draw some of that stuff really easy. And I like that. And we'll bring that bowl back up here. And let's drop this edge, maybe a bit more yellows and my pinks and stuff here, so that my rose goes more pink over on this side here. There we go. And sometimes I'll just blur them together there, just like that. Pull some of that pink out into these petals. That gives you good harmony. It travels that color. Travel that color a bit. Okay. And I do like that big pulling up one there that's, you know, that's kind of crossing, but I like the shape of the ones here where they come up towards out of the bowl like that. I do like that a little bit better. So we can fold this one. We'll work on that a bit. But we'll bring some of these other little chiseled ones here, petals, right there. Now this is getting really, really wet right here because I've used a lot of paint. So it's going to get hard here very quickly. And so I'm going to let this tack up as I refine that bowl. I'm going to let that tack up a minute. And I'll come back and paint some more. Maybe I can go in there to the back. Let's take a little toned color. Remember, into that back. We'll tone that down a bit. Okay, and so we'll draw a few little petals back here. Soft from that soft color. Just a little bit. The impressions of them doesn't take very much. Let's give just a impression here of that light little petal. Maybe this little spark of pink back here. Here, boom, like that. That light, take that little edge there, that light little edge. Let's just drop one more in there. There, like that. That's kind of pretty. And before I let this one tack up, I want to reshape that bowl a bit. Let's just get some more of that color back in there and reshape that. Push that around. See, I like this movement. This is what I like more than anything else. You know, you see me in the 30 days of roses and everything. See, I'm pushing with my left hand too. This is not my dominant hand. I push with the other hand there, which loosens it up, which is not as perfect. I'm not as perfect with my left hand as I am with my right hand, but I'll use it that way. So let's grab a little bit more light. And we'll build that, just some soft. And see, this is now sticky. That's where I like it, when it's sticky. Because I can push hard to keep the rose. And I can, to give the shape and stuff to the rose, I can push pretty hard. Let's soften this out. I can push pretty hard, but yet I can draw really easy, which is what I like. Let's take some of this soft, and remember, to get that harmony, we've got to make sure we have that that green and stuff into this to push it back just a bit here. Push those colors back here, and we'll come over here and we'll get a little darker, a little bit more harmony. Our background color, that's your harmony. Push it to the background. Push it back, just a little bit of light, and let's just suggest a few petals over here because we don't need that much. Maybe a suggestion back here, not as much as we do onto the other one there. Maybe a little bit more of a suggestion across the front here, across the front here of this rose. That'll close that down just a bit. You know, every little mark you make, you suggest its shapes. So that's up to you. So, but I'm always looking at their interaction between the petals and the bowl here of what I want into this rose, how I want. And so, and you got to remember, you know, like I talked about 30 days of roses here, as the petals get further out, those are the more mature, the longer petals. The smaller ones get further in here, or smaller as they get further into the flower. More towards that center, the petals become smaller. Those are the juvenile petals. And so we want to make sure that we get those. And I'm going to put a nice little chiseled one, I think, right across here. Just going to round that up a bit. A smaller little chiseled petal. And what I do is I put that on it, and then I'm just going to short pull it right in here towards where that bowl is, right there. And I could use a touch more light stroke. And if I'm going to apply it, I use very little pressure here. Just apply the paint. And it applies that short little petal right there like that. So you can build those. So we'll be doing that in the front of this other one in just a minute. But push some of this around. Sometimes I just let it dance. You know, just let that dance over there on that side, and that's fine. But let's take some of that light. We have enough pink and stuff here. Let's build that bowl up here a bit more. Okay, maybe a bit of that softer pink right up into it. And so, and even that Diarylide, beautiful Diarylide Yellow, right down in there would be pretty. And if I want the rose to get, see, like these are very structured. And if I want these to be light and fluffy, I start doing just strikes of color here. And I let that happen, those strikes of color. You know, maybe I have that edge here that I will lighten up this one right here, right there, and take some Diarylide. So my bowl's kind of off. See how it strikes right there? So I'll just round up my bowl ever so little, just like that. And maybe pick up, boom, so I can draw again. Let's lighten up that edge right there. Give a nice edge to that petal. Maybe even lighter that petal, since that's the light side. And now I'll just barely touch the surface and apply the lighter color. Quite a bit of the lighter color there. So it's a pressure thing. So if I really want to lighten up a petal, don't push down. And this is why I love these brushes. And I designed these brushes just for this, because the tip is so soft. And so it doesn't take any pressure. You're just like laying it on. And I always say it's like a butterfly, just touching the surface here. And so we can use that right in there like that. See, it's a pretty little color. And if we want to push back towards that back, let's just take some of our burnt sienna green right over here, and I'll look for a nice neutral and push that right into there, and then that'll make the petals here look a little bit more transparent. See? Boom, right back into there like that. It gives that transparency. As a matter of fact, I can drop that right into there. Drop some of that color right into there, and it gives that beautiful transparency. Or in the back here, I look to what that color is there, and we'll grab something close to that, and I'll drop that right back here, and I give even more nice transparency or translucency to the colors that I want to have in there. So you determine that. You determine that. So I don't have too much of a bowl here, but you can find it through there. I could let's bring back both of my violets and stuff here. And let's just bring in a little bit of that, of where that bowl would be right there. Then you can help find it. Ooh, Diarylide Yellow would be beautiful in there. I love that. Let's just give that a little dose right in there. That's kind of pretty. You see, just a bit of that Diarylide in there. Now, back out here to our simplistic one. And I might paint this with some extender. Now, why the extender and some of this background? the extender because it keeps the colors thinner. As I go back out here, I don't need that much. I don't need to get carried away with my painting too much because it is softer. It's out into the back. So I'll push some on. I'll push. You know, you see me do this all the time. I push, and what I'm doing is I'm incorporating that color into the base of my background, which is creating a harmony. I don't want to go this light. I can bring that up even more. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll do that. Pick up just some pure white here. And let's just strike that right up here onto the front of our rose. Here, boom, 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 boom. Now that definitely puts that up in front of this one. Now I don't want to go anywhere near that light. Maybe a touch more. See, I'll lightly, lightly, lightly touch the surface here. Boom. It just lightly touches. I could roll that petal there too, but I kind of like that interaction right there. That's kind of neat. Maybe one more little bit here of that light coming down. That's kind of pretty right there. It's a nice, soft, beautiful, soft roses there. And let's take a little toned down Diarylide. Drop a bit of that. See, it's just toned down there. Let's just real soft. Let's keep this real soft. Gray it down. You got to go down the value scale. You're not painting with the lights anymore. Let's go down the value scale. Just kind of push in some ideas of the rose, the rounding of the rose here. Just some ideas of it. You don't need very much. And the colors need to have more of this in it. They'll look really light. Look how really light that looks. Okay, that's the problem, I think, with a lot of rose painter. A lot of painters do when they go to do this. You go in here and you go, wow, that color, I can't see it enough, so let's toss in some more white. And then you ruin your painting by getting too much white. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to keep your colors down in here. And see, my colors here are brighter. This is my back rose right back here. And this color will look just fine. Maybe just a touch lighter. Not too much here. Not too much. Keep it softer. Doesn't need much here to say there's that rose. Now we could simultaneous contrast is what? When the darker color, the lighter color is going to look lighter. So if I take a darker color here, my bowl color, restate my bowl, it's going to make my lights look lighter. So rather than come in there with more white, I'll come in there with a little bit of dark, and that will suggest, let's just come in here over here to these burnt siennas and stuff, that will make all of my lights up here appear lighter than what they might be. And I might not need, see, I don't need to put any more white. Look at how light that is now because I put that dark right there. So I didn't lighten it up, okay? And so we don't need that. Let's just add a few little marks just in the shape of the rose. That's all we need. We don't need to get wild and crazy. Now, in between here on some of these suggestive petals and stuff down here, down we have some leaves. We can toss those in. You could toss other back, you could really fill this floribunda up. You could toss in some back ideas of some, back petal stuff. I like that in there, so I don't think I'll do that. I really kind of like that whole expression right there. I might even just wipe my brush here, pick up some pure white, just straight pure white, and increase my white here one more time. Boom, just right up there like that. I really like that type. You see, it gets a lot of movement in there. Maybe I'll take just an extra bit here and just pull that one in just a bit more. I always call this, those of you who paint along with me in 30-day roses and all the hundreds of rose lessons that I have on this channel now, I always call this the queen. She's gonna control the composition here. So this is the queen. And I always come back and revisit and paint with the queen for a while as I'm finishing up a design. The queen rules this composition. So here comes this one. Now, in the reference photo, you see lots and lots of darker leaves, but you have these beautiful, these are that beautiful background, and you can make these beautiful grade greens from these colors here. And so these are beautiful colors to work in conjunction with, you know, some of the, especially here if I want to take off the size of that pink a little bit here. These are just beautiful, soft green colors here. Maybe we'll add a little shadow mark here. You know, a lot of representational painters will paint half the leaf shadow, half the leaf light. I can add a stroke of some beautiful yellows to it, especially like in conjunction with that. So we'll pick up a little bit of a yellow, or just a touch of a lighter yellow, yellow-green highlight. Or you can paint them very, very simplistic like I've done in so many other paintings. And I can take the edge and push in just the idea of a vein line. I like to give a little vein line, sometimes a little suggestion of it, because it takes out the direction, gives it kind of a direction. I might take some of my pine green, burnt sienna, maybe a touch of blue. This will darken it and push in the idea of a dark leaf into the composition. This does a couple things. So here we can come in and put a shadow of a leaf down here, like it's coming down out of shadow. We can then hit it with a couple of little highlights just to give it an, and you can see the leaf gets just a touch more interest there. Let's take that just a bit bigger, maybe not quite as dark, a bit bigger here. But you start out with some of those darks, and you know, we've talked before about negative painting and you know, creating those contrasts through those darks. And the darks are so important into your painting. But getting a nice variation, now I can, after I put that dark in there, maybe I want to add just a bit of light movement in there. And see, I can still leave that dark, or maybe even reinforce it right here up against this edge, right there. Still leave that dark for, you know, within the composition there. Okay, so that works. I can come out here. Let's go more medium dark, just a little bit here. And maybe push in one or two. I don't want to get rid of too much of that red. I just love that in there. I just might let that leaf just play into that. And I can do that. See, I can just take these edges off. I can leave just more of a you know, a casual look to it, a lost edge. I don't have to do all of that painting stuff on there. I can just lose it there. Maybe a little bit more of a, instead of a light to dark, maybe we'll go a little bit of green into there. You know, these are all things that, but you know, I control it. I control the look of it, you know. Here, what I want to say with this particular painting, that looks pretty good, but I just want to get a bit more light right up onto that one, and maybe that little edge, that little vein line there. I just like the little vein line. Maybe coming down here to the bottom, I just put more burnt sienna so I get more atmospheric with it, and we'll put out a few little marks here. I love to make these quick little marks and like ideas of little stems and stuff with a lot of burnt sienna in the especially if I have a lot of it into my background. I just like that. Let's draw some of these stem lines and stuff like that, or ideas of these stems right out here like that. And, you know, we can put in little ideas of, let's go a little darker, some other leaves and stuff like right out here like that, little marks. let some of those pinks and stuff there come through that. You can just use some, which I do a lot, pure burnt sienna in to give some ideas of smaller stems, lights. You can use that, or sometimes I'll make some of this light green with some burnt sienna modeled in there. Draw those, just right up over the edge here. And break some of that. Give just little ideas. I like to use these brushes and stuff on their edges because I can get these real broken stem lines that get a lot of interest and stuff to it there as well. Just all kinds of ways. Use your brush. And you see, I painted this whole thing with this number 10 Fusion filbert. I just love it because I can draw. So these roses, when I'm going to draw those edges and look for those petal edges, the filbert gives me an easy way to do it. And I can draw some, on these leaves and stuff like that. That's for me to do. And I can do that. I can anchor that down there. Let's push just a bit of burnt sienna and some of this dark right in here. And just push and play a little bit. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit lighter. Bit of the green right out here. Maybe a bit of this negative type painting right out here. Let's let that just play off of that. And you can use it anytime, like maybe I want to shape up this rose a little bit here. So I'll do the negative part of it there like that, pulling out. Like I'm just kind of shaping that up a bit. And maybe a mark or two. But I like this. Now, this is also where you can come in and really spark. And that's not too bad. 52 minutes for a painting like this, a pretty good sized painting. That's not too bad. But we can take that Diarylide here. Let's just pop that just a bit more. See, that is the ticket right there, that pop. Now some of you won't like the pop. You don't have to do that. And I can just soften that in just by running my finger through there real quick, and but it's different. And that's the whole thing. I like to paint roses with all kinds of differences to them. And so I'll try all different kinds of techniques and things with them. Let's just pop a little bit of that yellow in there. Just a bit of that pop there. That's that. It gets that color pop in there. Maybe a little bit of that yellow and the red. Don't mix it up real well. Some of that violet. Don't mix it up real well. And you really give it that touch there. That touch of color, that spark of interest into the painting. And it takes a lot of bravery because you can screw it up. Yeah, you can't screw it up. I don't want to say that because you can just paint over it and make it all fun again. So, but yeah, look at that. Little bits that it adds to that, And question, do you like it or not? That's up to you, And how does all of that work? Do you want to soften any of that out? Because you can certainly soften all of that out. And, I show you can just take your bigger brush just take all of this now. Soften it all out. This is all colors of harmony. Okay? And I can just start laying some of this color over some of this other color that I have there. And I will start softening it out. And how much do you do? Any kind of lights into that, that's up to you. How much do you do? That's up to you. How much do you soften? Do you want to soften? Do you like the contrast? Some of you are going to love the contrast. Some of you are going to go, no, keep going, Dave. Soften that all out, you know. And that's the whole ticket of the art world, right? You know, is to paint it all, try it all. You know, some of you will like it. Some of you will just go, yeah, you need to soften that out. I say you put this in kind of a gold frame, give that elegance to it, and you've got yourself a nice, nice painting. Maybe I want to take some of that softer pink. We'll grab some of our tonal color here, some light here, and we just pull that pink right from that flower, right off that side, right there. Here we go. Just let that pink just kind of go off that side there, like that. That runs off that side. That keeps pushing that pink up and off that side. That's kind of nice. That's up to you. And you can put more lights. You can soften. 1,000 things you can do. So here is my harmony color. These are my interest colors. And so as I push back, I mix more of my harmony color in there. I've got warm colors all up through here with my yellows and those pinks, and then more of the violets and stuff coming down to this side. Cooler leaves down in through here with additions of blue and stuff. And you saw that. Putting in little sparks of color just really kind of gives it that extra little pop, you know. So it's a lot of fun. Try that. It's a kind of a combination, though, of the warm and the cool. Now we're adding that tonal color in there. And, you know, it's like so many people say, you know, when I painted that owl, you know, wow, it looks like it's just flying right off of the canvas. And so that's another part of the technique, which is those edges. So when I build up his head, remember in that lesson, I said, I'm really going to build up that head. Nice warm cools, build up that head, strokes, marks for those feathers, and edges. See those edges that are right there? That's what causes it to advance. This, you don't see where's the edge there? You can't find it. The edge blurs into the background. That causes it to roll back and recede. Where's the edge here? You don't see it. That edge comes forward. That's what that difference is. Look at the edge of the wing back there to the edge of those trees that are back there, okay? Now, it took me a long time to see that, and this is why I tell all of you, watch all the lessons. It's not because I want you to sit there and watch all my videos, okay? No, it's because when I went to go paint these flowers, when I wanted to jump my flowers with more life, I needed to learn how to see the art of lost and found edges and work more edges, and that's really easy to see in a landscape. So I did a lot of landscapes, and then those tonal colors, like I told you in that owl, you know, getting that owl to just come forward there. I did that a lot with portraits and fine-tuning my eye to see those subtle differences in those colors. All of this, guys, can be learned. All of it can be learned. So many people right there, oh, you got all this talent, you can do that. No, I was a chemist and a paint systems. You know, I manufactured paint systems, and even as a paint system, as a colorist, I couldn't see exactly how to put those all together into a painting. That took study, but you can do it. It just takes practice. That's all. It's practice. And doing it again and again and again. And along the way, you'll make a few mistakes. And along the way, you'll make some beautiful paintings and have some fun. Okay? In an hour. We just did it under an hour. So, yay, we did it. Okay? So, there's that. Now, I'm going to be talking about then the next one into some landscapes. Seascapes. We got to paint a seascape again in the sand. We're going to paint warm and cool sand and wet sand and all of that kind of good stuff into a beautiful seascape. And so we'll give that a try as well before we go back into some more landscapes, more florals, more everything. And this winter I took a picture of a beautiful trumpeter swan, big, beautiful trumpeter swan. And I'm trying to figure out, it's going to be a big painting and, you know, work and build like they did the owl, the trumpeter swan. And I have it coming in over the water with a reflection down into the water. So I want to do that. I'm not sure I'm going to do it for YouTube or do it for my classes, but if you want to see something like that, it'd be fun. And we had a request for ringneck pheasant, so we got to do that too. Lots of stuff. I got to film every day. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and helping me this year through some troubled times. I appreciate that, guys, so much, more than you know. Love all your comments, and they keep us going. Thank you very much, and see you on the next one.